Greetings, Earthlings. It's me, Dave, the guy who sells the comics on here. Not as many as I want, not as productive as I'd like to be. Oh, I should have written my memoirs during the lockdown. I scratched my belly, put on a lot of weight, drunk far too much, ate far too much, and well, going back to work. It's nice to go back to work. It's nice to have a work to go back to, but it's that sort of crisis of purpose started to kick in towards the end of the lockdown, and that's sort of abating a bit. But what brings me here to talk to you is the selling of comics, sure, but this one sold. Now, it's a Hulk, and anyone who knows me as a comic aficionado knows that Hulk's my favourite character. And we could go into the whys and wherefores of why he's my favourite character. But I won't bore you too much with that. That's a video that's already been done, or maybe will get done again. The cover of this, so Aquan, fantastic name. One of the sort of he's not well remembered, and he should be up there with the he should be up there with Goom and Zax and Groot and many of the other Golden Age monsters that were sort of rediscovered throughout the Silver and the Bronze Age. But this is Herb Trimper's great cover. Herb Trimper, who I was very fortunate enough to meet and buy tacos with cheese and a beer for, and he signed my Wolverine 181. Oh, happy times. I hope you're up there penciling for God now. But the caption is, "In seconds, Greenskin, the chamber will be filled with pure H2O. I was created to breathe underwater, but you were not." Now, in the comic, Aquan can't actually speak. He just lumbers through these double doors that open to fight the Hulk. My first exposure to this was a Hulk colouring book that I got as a kid. There was a Hulk colouring book and a Spider-Man colouring book. That might have been formative, because Hulk and Spider-Man are my two favourite heroes from Marvel. Now, a lot of the groups I'm part of, a lot of the comic groups I'm part of are, and I don't mean this in a condescending way. Certainly, it would be condescending to myself, but the more the intelligentsia seem to favour DC more, and I never really got into. Of course, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and Flash, and Hawkman, and all the great pantheon that DC has. I was aware of them, and I did get some of their comics, but there was just something so much more appealing. The pathos, it was definitely the pathos with the Hulk. And this comic encompassed the pathos. I'll sort of run through the plot with you. So spoilers, everyone, if you haven't read the comic. It's a two-part story that starts in 164. And Hulk gets captured by a submarine, and there's a race of people that are sort of squat, and they've become accustomed to the intense pressure of undersea, being born, bred, and living undersea. And he, at first adversarial, and then he becomes their saviour. Again, the archetypes were great. Because Hulk, it was a genius stroke, because as you probably know, if you read comics, Hulk started out as a sort of quite a belligerent character in his first few issues up to about the sort of 4 and 5s. It was when they reinvented him as this sort of almost childlike character that was at the whim of his rage, because of course Hulk used to originally change when the sun set. It was a genius stroke. Now I'd like to give you some information in it, because the original Frankenstein was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the original novel, became a very eloquent and a very, one might almost say, a very malevolent, definitely a very spiteful a person, and wanted to take revenge on his creator. He was a peak athletic capacity in the novel, and he's able to philosophize with his creator when he meets him face to face. And when Frankenstein was reinvented, especially in the black and white movie in the 30s, played by Boris Karloff, there was a certain childlike quality to him. And whether that was intentional or whether that was, again, accidental, the Hulk followed that same sort of arc. Where the original Hulk was mean-spirited and able to converse and understand the gamut of emotions and surroundings that it was in, but the green-skinned and the later Hulk was always much more subject to his emotions, very childlike. Hulk sleepy, Hulk hungry, Hulk angry, Hulk smash. And I think as a child, certainly as a child, it appealed to me, but certainly as a child, that the misunderstood part of that was prevalent in all the Hulk comics, where the story would take you on a journey of him first being adversarial, then making friends or becoming the saviour of the people that he'd been adversarial to, and then losing those friends just through a turn of fate, and feeling alone and in desolation again. So Aquan, he beats Aquan, he becomes a saviour of these squat undersea people, and he decides to set them free and bring them back to the surface. And they all come out and see the sun for the first time, get out the submarines and walk on the beach, and they can feel the sand between their toes and the sun on their faces and see the palm trees. And it's all so wonderful until one by one they start to explode. And it's quite graphic, or it was graphic for me as a child, the explanation that they were just exploding into these bloody pulps. The animation, the artistry wasn't overly gory, but it certainly Herb Trimp's rendition, a depiction of what was happening was certainly hit home, and it's because obviously the differences in pressure. He wanted to take them to his world. Hulk wanted to take these people to his world because he'd saved them, and he wanted to give them what he enjoyed, which was the fresh air and the sun and freedom. And that's what ultimately destroyed them. And that was a theme that ran prevalent through a lot of Hulk stories. The Circus of Lost Souls, the Mogul, is it Mongol or Mogul, the Tyrannus' android that is adversarial, then befriends him, and then is ultimately destroyed by the Hulk. The the story arc he does with in the Collector in the late hundreds or the early 200s, certainly, when Man Thing and the Glob and Hulk are captured by the Collector, and he tries to he tries to set them free again after smashing everything and tearing down the Collector's construct. He sets them free, and they just start to age and turn into porridge, because it's the Collector's construct that has kept him alive for hundreds of years. And again, Hulk sets them free and loses everyone because he doesn't understand nuance. He's in total contrast to the scientist alter ego that he has, which is Bruce Banner, and is totally at the whim of his baser emotions. He wants to save, he wants to do good, but he's always doomed to be misunderstood or to misunderstand what his actions, the consequences of his actions. So, as a child, it was a very powerful archetype. I won't get too much into Spider-Man. The Spider-Man thing was fun. He had obviously problems that kids had. He bullied and he had to do homework, and he found himself with these extraordinary powers. But the Hulk was a much more... the pathos was within Hulk was so strong. I mean, I know there's a certain amount of bandied about a toxic masculinity and its cause and its manifestation, but as a kid, my idea of being a man was to but I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of stick for this, but was not just saving women, but saving people. You know, I'd imagine being possibly the Hulk and grabbing people or grabbing people that I liked or loved and being able to leap away from problems or monsters as the Hulk. And I think in our expendability as men, we have this idealistic notion that we can make everything better. Now, we're talking about comics. They're not considered great, the great edifices of culture or indeed literature, but they still contain the archetypes and ideals that were laid down thousands of years ago in classical mythology. It's old wine in a new bottle, so to speak, which I think a lot of the superheroes are. Whether you look back, we've always needed something meta-human, something more than us to aspire to. I think big characters like Superman are the tip of the pyramid, that ideal. And it's always interesting if you get a writer that's able to, because you know the guy can do anything. How can you have to be a really clever writer to make a compelling story, and there's been some fantastic Superman stories. But anyway, I'm digressing. This was meant to be about Hulk and this particular issue that I've sold, and it's going to a good home, I hope, because it's very precious to me. And you sell comics, and maybe not everyone gets quite as emotional as I do about comics when I look at the cover and the colours and just remember scribbling it over in a crayon as I was clumsily trying to colour it in the colouring book that I had as a kid, and then eventually buying the cover and reading it and understanding the concepts and the gravity of the story, the message that it was trying to portray. So Hulk 165, kids. It's a fantastic it's the conclusion to the 164, 165 story. And it's fantastically illustrated by Herb Trimpe. He's my second favourite artist in the Hulk canon. with Salbacema being my first. I think it's a video for another time. My rant on how much I love Salbacema. Sadly, I've never met Salbacema, or indeed John, another great artist, who's his brother. But Herb Trimpe I have met, and talked to him about his illustrating the Hulk and the Defenders and the you know, just his contribution to comic books. There was a fantastic Herb Trimpe wrote it was almost like a diary excerpt. You can probably find it online, about him. I think he was 50, he was certainly in his 50s, mid-50s, maybe 53, 55, when he found himself unemployed and had to reinvent himself as a teacher. And it's a very candid look at someone. And when you meet these people, they seem like giants. When I met him, you know, it was like the I was going to say Bill and Ted. It's not Bill and Ted, is it? Wayne's World, We're Not Worthy scene, where you want to bow down to them and say, look, you've given me so much. Your illustrations and images portrayed so much to me as both a child and an adult. And the transformation from a child, it almost helped me in the transformation from child to adult. That it's very humbling sitting there with them and seeing that they're human, of course. And seeing them roll their eyes when you get too gushy, and seeing them as well humbly quite nonchalantly sign your Hulk 181, which I have two of course. Listen, I live in squalor. It's not a comment on my riches. I live in abject poverty, with things piled up around me, and moths, them damn moths. I'll kill the moths. I will. I've just bought some new stuff to kill the moths. Not nice moths, not the big moths. The big moths are good. They're them little moths that eat things. In particular, I've found a nest under some unbagged and bored comics that really upset me. There was a big residue, and there was the larvae and everything. It was quite upsetting, but it's my fault. It's my fault. I've created the environment in which they thought they could thrive. But I will crush them, and crush them I shall, with implements from Robert Dias, no less. So Hulk 165. £8 I sold it for. Priceless really to me, but £8 I really hope it's going to a good home, and hopefully I'll speak to you next time I sell a comic and get very emotional. This is Dave from the comic selling page, saying hi and bye.